Hare Krishna. Please go ahead, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Okay.
And it's, chapter 28 summary. Thank you.
Yes, Mataji. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaivam Narottamam Devim Saraswati Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudire Shrunvata Swakatha Krishna Punya Shravana Kirtana Hridayantastoya Bhadrani Vidhunoti Sarhitsatam Nashtaprayeshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavate Uttama Shloke Bhakti Bhavati Naistikhi Namo Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Pudale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swami Namine Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pracharne Nirvishesha Shranyavadi Pashata Deshatarine Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktavrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So we are thank you to you assembled devotees for giving me this opportunity to speak for my own purification. Today we'll do the summary of the a preview actually of the chapter 28 that we're going to read through now going forward. Please forgive me if I add my own meaning or interpretation to this. Summarize from the purports and commentary by Srila Prabhupada and devotees. So in 27, so far we have been hearing the story about Puranjan, an allegory story about Puranjan, who is none other than a living entity. And through this allegory and story, Narada Muni is instructing King Prachin Bharisat, who also having a similar condition. But through this story, he's giving him a lesson so that it can open his eyes. And so far, we have seen that Puranjan, he got married, he has family, and finally, he got attacked by the Kalkanya, the King Yavan, and their soldiers, and they were ready to attack him. And then last chapter we left with the story about the little bit history of the Kalakanya. So Kalakanya her other name is Jara, means old age. So in chapter 28, then we begin or we start the story where we left off, as they say, right? And at the beginning, that Narad Muni continues to expand the story. Then what happens after the Kalkanya married to king of Yavana, and they all started traveling all over the world. And the soldiers, and along with Kalakanya, they attacked the kingdom of Puranjan. And they started attacking all the inhabitants of Puranjana city and make them useless for all purposes. So again, this is city is the body, and once Jara or old age start attacking, and the soldiers like time and days and the different soldiers who attacks that, slowly our body also start becoming rendering useless as we grow in age. So that's another allegory given here. So here when Kalakanya, when she embraced Puranjan, he lost all his beauty and all the opulences, and he became very poor in intelligence. And then he began to bereft of all possessions. He was conquered forcibly by all the soldiers of the Yavana king, and the object of the enjoyment became stale by influence of Kalkanya. And due to continuance of his lusty desires, King Puranjan became very poor in everything. He did not understand the aim of life, and he was still affectionate toward his wife and children, and he was worried about maintaining them. This is exactly the position of parent present civilization, as Prabhupada says. Everyone is engaged in maintaining the body, home, and family. Consequently, everyone becomes confused at the end of the life, not knowing what is the spiritual life and goal of human life. In the civilization of sense gratification, there cannot be spiritual life because person thinks only of his life, and after the next life is fact. Although the next life is coming and it's fact, but there is no information given about it in any religion other than in detail what happens other than the our scriptures, Sanatana Dharma. So that's why, since we know that, we should take for that. There's a funny story that there was one uh, uh, a shopkeeper who was rich. He has so many sons. He was about to die. So then he says, his wife says that, hey, your elder son is here, your middle son is here, your younger son is here, your servants are here, your daughter-in-laws, everybody is here to see you. And that dying person says, oh, everybody is here, then who is taking care of the shop right now? So this is the position of a materialistic person, where even while dying, and similar situation Puranjan is going through, that even though he's dying, he's worried about everything else than the purpose of life. Even if you ever remember at the end of the life, the God or Krishna, but since he was never attempt made or effort made throughout the life, he's come like there's never thought to come that he should think about Krishna or or spiritual life, but he was just thinking about material life. So finally, this Puranjan was overcome by the Yavana and Gandharva soldier. And even though king had no desire to leave city, but he was forced to do so. It was smashed by Kalkanya. So that's the position that even nobody wants to die. But when Yavana soldiers or the soldiers of Yamaraj, when Yamdut comes, they have we have to evacuate the body. That people don't realize that. And then a serpent who's living with the um, soldier with King Puranjan in the city, uh, he also has to leave the city to do the because they all the soldiers they put fire on the city. So that is five prana that also have to leave along with Puranjan, a living entity, when the body is burned. Now, Puranjan was overly attached to his family and conception of life, I and mine, and because of that, he was overly attracted to his wife. And here, the wife is the material desires, and he was already quite poverty stricken. At the same of separation, he became very sorry that, and like everybody else, like they think that my material desires are still unfulfilled, and so he, Puranjan, began to think of his past dealing with his wife, and then how she was nice to him, and she would take care of her, him, and then, but his sons and daughters and everything, she would tolerate his misbehavior and whatnot. So she was just contemplating on and on about his wife. But so when the Yavana soldiers they were taking away the Puranjan, they bind him like an animal, and then all the king's followers they will become very sad, but they couldn't do they couldn't do anything at that time, and so that's how the living entity goes when they are not Krishna conscious. They are spiritually conscious because then devotional conscious because then that's where the Yamdut comes and then they dragged him, that living entity, out of it. And uh, even though he's being dragged, he was leaving his body. He couldn't, was forcefully taken away from his body. He could still uh, could not remember Super Soul, who is his friend and well-wisher. He was still thinking about the family. So uh, that is to an extent, if you look at the story of Ajamil, that will come. So he was in a similar boat, even though he was calling his son Narayan, and he got saved because of that. But end of the day, his consciousness was only like calling, like he's almost like a toddler son, and not thinking how he's gonna help him. But he got lucky that his name was Narayan. It was so. But I don't know how many people are lucky that way if they don't have the son or daughter's name like that and they have attachment to that. Now, Varanjan also, because we have seen in previous chapters that he did kill many animals, and because of that, now taking on this all these animals started to harass him and cut him. pieces by pieces. So this is a trailer again in Canto 5, Chapter 26. We will see that it describes the details of hellish planet. When a foolish person who's absorbed in a bodily concept of life, and on the basis of this principle, he maintains himself or his wife and children by committing violence against the other living entities, he's putting into a hell known as Rururwa. There, animals he killed take a birth as a creatures called Rurus and that cause a great suffering to him. And uh, somebody who was eating animals for the satisfaction of their tongues, and they cook the animals and birds alive. Such person are condemned, even by man eaters. In the next life, they are carried by the Yamdutas to the hell known as Kumbhipak, where they are cooked in a boiling oil. So even people though said, "Oh, enjoy the life. What is there in life after this?" But just because they are ignorant more, they don't realize that uh, how much punishment they're going to bear by doing the sense gratification. So in the King Puranjan, gives his body up while remembering his wife, and because of that, he became a woman in his next life and take a birth as a daughter of King of Vidarbha. And okay, here the Vidarbha is allegories for karma kand activities, or where whoever proficient in doing those kind of activities. So when the daughter, as a Vidarbhi, he was born, she grew up and then he married to a very powerful man called king called Malayadwaja. And after conquering all the princesses, he married the king of this daughter, Vidarbhi. So the name Malayadwaj signifies as a great devotee who stands as firm as Malaya hill and through his propaganda makes other devotees similarly as firm. So when karma kand and other activities, if by fortunate, if we come across the power of the spirit, devotional service, and he get conquered by that, then he get benefits of it. Now, King Malayadhwaj, he was a great devotee, and he he had with King Vidarbhi, Queen, sorry, Vidarbhi, he got a nice daughter, and whose eyes were black. So figuratively, it says that the daughter of King Malayadhwaj, who are also bestowed with devotional service, her eyes were always fixed on Krishna. So a devotee has no vision in life other than Krishna. The seven sons, she begets the seven sons. So these seven sons are seven process of devotional service: hearing, chanting, remembering, offering worship, offering prayers, rendering transcendental loving service, and serving the lotus feet of the Lord. Out of nine types of devotional service, only seven are immediately given, and the remaining balance, friendship and surrendering everything, would be developed later. Now, and then, so her daughter was always, and then she was married to Agastya Muni. Here, the Agastya Muni is very significant. Agastya Muni represents the mind. The word Agastya indicates that the senses do not act independently, and the word Muni means mind. So the mind is the center of all senses, and thus senses cannot work independently of mind. So when mind takes the cult of bhakti, it engages in a devotional service. And the cult of bhakti, which is the first daughter of Malayadhwaja, as previously described, her eyes were always fixed on Krishna. And therefore, Bhakti Lata is a Dradavata, the great vow. For when the mind is completely engaged in devotional service, the mind does not fall down. After that, this King Maladhwaj, he divided his kingdom among his sons. And in order to worship Lord Krishna with full attention, he went to solitary place known as Kulachala. Kulachala means a place where there is no disturbances. So it's to flourish the bhakti, it's very important that our mind stays in a stable mode. And uh, fortunately, even his wife, Vaidarbhi, who is like Puranjan in his previous life, followed him to the forest like a chaste woman, and she was serving him. And eventually, Maladhwaj, he conquered all the dualities of life: happiness and distress, cold and heat, wind and rain, and hunger and thirst. And then he was able to hear from the spiritual. from the spirit soul, super soul actually, sorry. And he stayed at one place immovable of 100 years. And then with that, like that, fixing his mind, he left his body. Um, so um, well, whether be she accepted um, his husband, her husband, as the supreme or everything for him. So here, figuratively, King Malayadhwaj is a spiritual master, and his wife Vaidarbi is a disciple. So the disciple accepts the spiritual master as the supreme personality of Godhead. So in Guru Ashtakam, Sri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that the one directly accepts the Guru, the spiritual master, as the supreme personality of Godhead. And when she was serving him, she felt that his husband has left the body. So she started crying loudly and lamenting that now what's going to happen. So at that time, one Brahman, who was old friend of King Puranjan, came to place and began to pacify Queen. And this Brahman is none other than the Supra Soul. And it came and then to console the Vaidarvi or Puranjan in previous life. And he started to explain that very beautifully and unclear the allegory that, hey, the city that there are 5 gardens, 9 gates, and 1 protector, 3 apartments, 6 family, and 5 stores, 5 material elements, and 1 woman is the who is lord of the house. So then he says, my dear friend, says 5 gardens are 5 objects of sense enjoyment, and the protector is the life air which passes through the 9 gates. The 3 apartments are the chief ingredients: fire, water, and earth. The 6 family are the aggregate total of the mind and 5 senses. And the 5 stores are the 5 working sensory organs. They transact their business through the combined forces of 5 elements, which are eternal. Behind all activity is the soul. Soul is the person and enjoyer in reality. However, because he is now hidden within the city of body, he is devoid of knowledge. And so the super soul says that, my dear friend, when you enter such a body along with the woman of material desires, you become overly absorbed in sense enjoyment, and because of this, you have forgotten your spiritual life. And due to material conception, you are placed in a various miserable condition. But actually, you are not the daughter of Vidarbha, nor this man, Malay Dhwaj. You are a well wishing husband, nor were you the actual husband of Puranjani. You are simply captivated in this body of 9 gates. So, here, final truth comes out at the end, and Super Soul says that you are not this body. You are never Puranjan. You are not husband of Puranjani. You are not a wife of this King Malay Dhwaj, but you are the soul. And you are not different than the quality of money, which is super soul. So he says that we are not differently qualitatively. This way, this Brahmana, super soul in form of Brahmana, educates the Puranjani, and then finally she realizes uh, the different purpose, what her real position is. So um, in this manner, the whole story goes through chapter 28, and uh, at the end, very nice. Prabhupada has given a very purport. He's given a very nice glossary of all these different characters, right, and the meaning of the names. For example, Vaidarbi describes as the woman who was formerly a man but who took birth as a woman in the next life because of too much attachment to woman. So that's why in Krishna Bhagavad Gita says, like, who are we attached to at the time of death, we take our next birth. That's why we need to always remember Krishna so we can go back to Krishna. Now, Vaidrabhi's name has 2 words. One is Darbha. Darbha means kusha grass. So in the Karma Kandi activities, the kusha grass is very important. And Vaidrabhi, this refers to one who takes birth in a family of Karma Kandiya family. However, if Karma Kandi activities, one by chance comes into contact with a devotee, as Vaidarvi did when she was married to King Malaydhwaj, who was a devotee, then the life becomes successful. And so the conditioned soul becomes liberated simply by following the instruction of the bona fide spiritual master. and the Yavana, who means here the servant of Yamaraj. So very nice allegory and description given in the glossary, which will really helps us to understand what are the actual these characters are, and we realize that these are all characters are none other than our own body. This is our own story. So very eye-opening. So this is a summary of 28 text, 28 very detailed, lot of messages packed between conversation between the Brahman who comes, super soul who comes as Brahmana, and Vaidarbi, almost like unpacking a Bhagavad Gita in a very short period of short amount of text. So very looking forward to this discussion. So with this, I'd like to conclude this summary. Please forgive me if I add my own meaning or interpretation or any mistakes. Hare Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa.